Well, you've heard the story, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Now imagine living it. That's what life was like for Shawn Thornton, whose mother was kind and loving one minute and a violent monster the next. Take a look.
Growing up, my life was anything but normal. But then, so was my mom. After waking up from a coma following a car crash, her gentle and sweet disposition had been replaced by violent mood swings, profanity-laced tirades, and uncontrollable fits of rage. A moment of frustration might make her hurl a knife at me, my little brother Troy, or my dad, or just cuss us out, only to shower us with love and affection in the next moment like nothing had happened. Yet, this same woman was also a Bible reader, Sunday school teacher, and a friend to the elderly, poor, and marginalized wherever she went. How the same person could be a saint one minute and a nightmare the next was a constant source of frustration for our family. Then, one day, after decades of embarrassing outbursts, a surprise discovery finally helped us come to grips with my mom's mysterious condition and brought me to a startling realization that changed the course of my life forever.
Well, Pastor Shawn Thornton is here with us now for the rest of the story. And Pastor Shawn, it's so good to see you.
Good to see you, Wendy. Great to see you.
You know, I used to visit your church in Charleston, West Virginia.
Yes.
You were a pastor there for how many years? 12 years?
About 12 years.
12 years. Yeah. And then I moved to Virginia Beach, and then you went out to LA and started a big mega church out there.
Yep, I moved into a church that was already a sizable church and get to pastor in the greater LA area.
Yeah, I guess you don't start a mega church.
Yeah, no,
like,
and there have been some great leadership before me in a wonderful church, and God brought us there after a season of brokenness for the church, and things are going great now.
Well, your memoir is amazing. Shawn, you say in your book that you lived in fear of your mom for most of your life, but at the same time, you call her a spiritual hero. Yeah. How do you reconcile those two?
Well, it's hard to reconcile when you're just trying to explain it to someone, but when you live it, my mom had been in an accident when she was 14, as you saw, had physical, emotional, and mental problems because of that. So she could be calm, reading her Bible, praying. She had a prayer list. She could be just sweet and things going fine, and all of a sudden something small would set her off, and she's cussing, she's throwing things. My dad would yell to us at the dinner table, kids under the table. I have one brother, you guys under the table, and we go under the table, and then we'd try to disarm her, and then she'd calm down again and
not even know that she had
barely
been there?
know it. She would know it, but she'd say this is because of the accident, and you know, she'd get frustrated. She was tormented in herself. So just as much as maybe we felt the torment from her, she was tormented on the inside.
So at first, I mean, you're a little kid. You're not thinking, you're thinking everybody lives like this, right?
Yes, this is normal.
And then around 10 or 11, you visit your friend's house, and you think, wow, it's different over here. Not as much volatility, or not any volatility. And the house was very neat and clean. Your house not so neat and clean because your mother, you know, it was kind of a mess because your mom wasn't able to clean. How did that affect you when you realized, this ain't normal?
Yeah, when I'm a little kid, this is normal. I get to be 9 or 10, I start realizing other people's homes are different, and that's more normal, so I'm giving excuses to friends who are coming to our house. And in my early teens, I'm begging God to put me in any other home because I don't want to be in this home. And it was one of those nights when my mom was having a breakdown, just tearing the house apart. It was all this, police come, take her to a mental institution. That night, I remember just saying to God, why not put me in some other home? If you know who I am. And we went to church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. She was a Sunday school teacher, sang in the choir. So I'm saying, put me in some other home. But then later in my teen years and college years, I started realizing, wait a minute. Everybody's got some brokenness. It may not be as extreme as mine. It may not be the same, but everybody's got brokenness.
And Shawn, you talk about a surprise discovery that really changed your life. What was that?
Well, in 1962, when Mom had the accident at 14 and was in a coma for 3 months, and coming out of that, recovering from that, she did not know, and the doctors didn't know about a thing called traumatic brain injury. And so for a couple of decades, they're trying to treat her for this and that, and pastors and psychologists and doctors. And finally, my dad starts collecting articles out of the local newspaper in northern Indiana, the South Bend Tribune. He starts collecting articles about this thing called traumatic brain injury. Now we hear about it all the time with the NFL and concussions, people returning from Iraq and Afghanistan with injuries to the brain.
And that's what she had.
So we figured out she had traumatic brain injury. Her personality had changed, all this chaos. And in the midst of her brokenness, she still loved Jesus and still became my greatest spiritual hero.
Well, you say that sometimes the broken people in our lives are the ones that need fixing the least.
Yeah.
How can that be?
Well, in her case, you know, we pray for God to heal, you know, someone who has this kind of brokenness and mental illness and difficulty. But in her case, I watched my mom be drawn to the child in the wheelchair. The woman at church who was a little odd, and her wig was off and her makeup was all smeared, and Mom would talk to that lady or to the child in the wheelchair just as much and with the same dignity she talked to the pastor. And so I learned that God loves marginalized people through my mom. And so I think in her brokenness, God used her to teach a lot of people, including me, how to care for the marginalized, the hurting, the overlooked.
That's so good. Now, your mom did pass away in 2000. In the shower, she hit her head.
Yeah.
She hit her head.
As a result of the car accident, she always had balance issues and would fall, and her fine motor skills wouldn't let her reach out and kind of grab herself. If you or I fell, we'd brace ourselves.
She must have been very young.
She was 52.
52.
She slipped and hit her head and drowned in the bathtub.
What are some of the things that people told you about your mom, Shawn, after she was gone?
People told me, even since the book has been out, people have said, we didn't know this, because we didn't tell these stories. I didn't tell any of these stories from the pulpit until the last year or so, and people have come to me and say, you know, your mom encouraged me to be a missionary. When people didn't notice me, your mom noticed me. When there was a Bible study and all the women were talking and I was new, your mom walked over and she talked to us, and your mom was such an encourager. Her laugh was so great. And a lot of times outside the home, she didn't show all of the emotions and all of the outbursts. And so people talk about how she genuinely loved them, would stop and pray with them. And those are the things, because she pointed me to Jesus and others to Jesus, those are the things that make her my greatest spiritual hero.
You waited 20 years. You know, I understand this because I got fired from my second TV job, and I took it off my resume. I didn't talk about it. You know, it was like a shame thing, and now it's like a badge, you know, of honor. Like, I survived. You know, I overcame.
It's a part of your story.
It's part of my story. Is that what happened to you? Because you didn't talk about this. Nobody knew about your upbringing. Everybody just thought you had the perfect, you know, leave it to
simple.
Beaver.
It was
leave it to Beaver.
Factory
family.
worker, simple home, but it was
20 years. Why now?
Well, I think the main thing I used to think was, okay, yes, this shaped in me a pastor's heart, and I care for people. This experience growing up in this chaos of this home with a mom who loved the Lord but had all these difficulties. But I thought nobody cared about the story. And then I shared it with Johnny Erickson Tata. And my mom, a big part of the story of All But Normal, the book, is that my mom loved Johnny and would say, if Johnny can do this, if she can make it, I can too, in her brokenness. And so I started to share it with Johnny. She had me share it with others. Max Lucado, the Christian author, heard it. He said, you got to tell your story or I'm going to write it into one of my books. And so he encouraged me to write the book, but I thought, does it really matter? And what I'm finding is, I thought the story didn't matter only in that people got the byproduct of, now I'm a pastor with a compassionate heart. Because my mom helped me develop that, and the Lord used her. But now I'm seeing, telling the story, there are people who are writing me, stopping me, saying, hey, I didn't have the exact same circumstances, but I have some brokenness in my past, and you're embracing yours. I'm encouraged by your embracing yours, and I'm finding hope and healing in my brokenness in reading your story.
That's so good. And Shawn, when you got out to California and your new church, what's your church's name?
Calvary Community Church, Westlake Village, California.
I love Westlake Village. So you get out there. There's a note on your desk. What did it say?
So I go to the empty office. I'm moving into the church. A big move for me from the East Coast to the West Coast, from the Bible Belt to the not so Bible Belt. And there's a note on my desk. Only thing in this empty room is a note from Johnny Erickson Tata and her husband Ken that said, welcome, we've been praying for the new pastor at Calvary, because they're only one exit up is their ministry headquarters. So we've been praying for the new pastor. And she had no idea what that meant to me because of how much she meant to my mom and my mom's brokenness, that Johnny was an inspiration to her.
And did she know it was going to be you?
She didn't. She didn't know the link. She didn't know all the connections. And my mom was already gone at that time. So I haven't even been able to share that with my mom. I will one day, and I hope in some way she knows that now in heaven, that Johnny and I crossed paths, and now I serve on the board of the Johnny and Friends Foundation. So what a blessing.
Well, you know, there's a lot of people back in Charleston. I was just there over the weekend. My niece got christened. who miss you. And I drove by your old church Bible center.
Yeah.
So this is your chance to say,
I love the people of West Virginia. I love the folks of Bible Center Church, and we mourned leaving there. Sometimes you mourn when God's calling you to a new place, and those folks have a special place in my heart, very much so.
It was actually a friend of mine from West Virginia that said, hey, you need to have him on your show.
Oh, because they'd seen the book, and that's great.
Right.
That's great.
But actually, it was our producers that made the final decision, so I don't have that kind of power.
Okay,
I know.
It's so I'm glad for the opportunity, because I'm hearing from so many people how it's helpful with the brokenness, the mental illness, the traumatic brain injury a loved one had, something about their childhood, and God's using it to bring hope and healing to people I've never met, and I'm humbled by that.
Absolutely. Well, it's a fantastic memoir, fantastic book with a great message. And Pastor Shawn, God bless you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thanks
Thank
for
you so
being
much.
here. Well, the book, again, called All But Normal: Life on Victory Road, is available in stores nationwide. You definitely want to get a copy of this.